Oh, well, we've already started. All right, so thank you all for attending the Police Advisory Committee meeting, September 10th. I'm the chairwoman of the committee. My name is Corey Woodley. We're going to go ahead and get started because, well, we have a great crowd today, which is a lot of fun. So first on our agenda is the meeting minutes are ready for approval from August 13th. I did get a chance to review these and everything looked pretty good to me. Did anyone have any comments or suggestions for those minutes? Yes.
When I read them, yeah, it looked like Barbara was here and not here. It looked like Richard was here and not there. Okay. Did you notice the attendance section of the minutes?
Yeah, sure.
It was all goofy.
How?
Well, the version I got emailed, it said Richard was both here and absent.
I see, yes.
It said Barbara was here and absent. I wasn't here.
Have a strong presence.
I wasn't here, so they got me right.
Did I do that? Are they both places? We have,
I was absent, as it happens.
you were absent? Okay. Yes, so we do have a couple mix-ups on that, yeah. I'll check.
Well, are people reading this closely or what, huh? No, I'm kidding.
Well,
I'm teasing, come on.
I read it, I'm sorry, I didn't notice the...
what about the rest of the content?
Oh, you mean the important stuff?
Yes.
Perfect. Nice job, Darby.
Because it's not like people that catch a mistake coming from this one, so
I
it's
think the problem is that I copy and paste the names into where the attendance stuff, so I
yeah.
got a little carried away.
I think last time we were highlighting how well the minutes have been.
So she purposefully put that in there to test you guys. It was all on purpose.
Well, since I'm an issue, I would say I show up at the meetings. I don't show up at the Little Festival, okay?
Both there and not there.
If you're working on the roll call, you can always adjust the designations for the names, because in the roll call, not all of them are up to date. They're up to date here on the agenda.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Not there,
I'll check.
so.
I'm glad you looked at it because I do think attendance is probably a really important section. Despite the rest of the content.
As long as I'm there, that's all I'm concerned. So Darby, why don't we kind of switch that up again next month and mix those up so that we can see if people are still reading?
I'll throw a curveball in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so are there any other comments on the minutes? Okay, do I hear?
I move approval as corrected.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so they are approved with those edits, so I will sign this at the next meeting then. Perfect. All right, so we do have a membership update. We have a couple of people here from ASWSU with us today. We have Jordan and Riley over here. So thank you so much for being here. Would you mind introducing yourselves to the committee?
Yeah, I'm Jordan Sykes. I'm a student. I'm currently a senior at WCU. I'm studying criminal justice and minoring in Spanish, political science, and business. I have future aspirations of becoming a law enforcement officer, and I'm a representative for ASWCU on this committee. Thank you for having me.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Thank you.
My name is Riley McNulty. I'm also here to represent ASWSU. I'm also a senior at WSU, graduating this May, studying criminal justice. I also want to become a police officer once I graduate, and right now I'm working with the WSU Police Corps as a sergeant there, so I'm working closely with the police and trying to get as much experience as I can.
Great. Thank you for being
Great.
here. Okay, great.
He's hiring.
Applications are on the city page.
Well, it's true. We had someone who once was on this committee became a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
So it is possible in our community.
No pressure.
All right. And for our special topics today, we're going to be talking about culturally sensitive policing. So Jeff is going to talk to us about this topic today, and he is the interim executive director of the WSU Diversity Education Program. Is that right? Okay. Okay.
And he did call and say that he's on his way.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know.
GPS.
Yeah, we had a couple last minute additions to the agenda, so if you didn't grab a new one, I can hand you one.
Oh, yes.
Does anybody
Did I
else need a
skip
new
that?
copy?
Yes.
A little bit skipped.
I haven't had coffee in 2 days. I'm trying something new.
That's not. You made a mistake.
All right.
Go back to the shopping.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you who are watching, it's much more entertaining in person, so please join us. All right, so the GPSA constituency request. For those of you who do not know what GPSA is, it's the Graduate Professional Student Association. I was on GPSA when I was a graduate student at WSU. It was a really good way for people to be for graduate students to be involved in the student government process. So it's kind of a mirroring program to ASWSU, but for graduate students. Was there other questions? I thought I heard some questions come up about what GPSA was.
So when it says constituency request, does that mean they're looking to have a?
Yes, so
Representatives.
we could create another column, another constituencies for them to have representatives to sit on the committee, similar to the way ASWSU does it, where they would appoint somebody to be there. I know that there was some contention in the past with it, given that their meetings are sometimes overlap with our meetings. They're Monday evenings, but I didn't know if.
So we do, in addition to the letter we received from the president, we do have the person who would be the representative, Amira, is here.
Oh, great. I'm talking about it when you could be talking about it. Okay. All right. So you guys all had that letter passed out. I don't know if you guys saw it as you walked in, but would you mind introducing yourself to the committee?
So my name is Amira.
Can I just have you stand at the podium? Sorry, we have this recorded, so it helps us to keep at the mic. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
My name is Amira. I am a graduate student in special education and the teaching and learning program at WSU. It's my honor here to be with you tonight to represent the Graduate Professional Student Association at WSU. It's really, it's our pleasure to be with you because it's really important to be part of this community because graduate students make a lot of changes at WSU, and I feel like we have to be more interacting and communicating with each other. That's why I feel like I want to join you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, great. So at this point, it's really up to committee members whether or not we want to create this additional constituency to create a new position. I've never been here for a vote to create a new category. I'm sure it's just a standard procedure.
I don't think we've created one since I've been here. We've eliminated one by two, but it would just be a matter of a motion and a vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
you
right.
have to amend the guidelines.
We have to meet again.
Some amendment on the guidelines would have to be done, but for the most, in terms of creating a new, strictly to create a new one, yeah, it's not, it starts with a vote, so.
Well, yeah,
Right.
you can just call for a vote. And I mean, for being at WSU, I mean, we have, and if you look at this, we have the Pullman School District completely covered, except for we need a high school student. And then we have WSU, we have ASWSU, and then our staff and faculty, and we are missing that graduate representative.
Yes.
So I just really think that we should.
And I'm remembering we used to have a graduate student constituency position in years past prior to Gary and Darby. And I'm sorry to say that we didn't have, for various reasons, that it was not a position that was very active. And part of it was the overlap. And so we decided to take it away because of that.
Right.
And so with interest, I would be in support of bringing it back.
Definitely, yeah. So maybe I could ask you a question. Thinking about that, Is GPSA okay with you guys potentially missing a GPSA meeting here and there if there is overlap? Or what is the plan if the meeting?
So I do not go to the meetings. They have their meeting I think right now. I'm kind of new to the program.
Okay.
And it's not going to be like I'm missing their meeting because my job with them will be different than attending their meeting. So
Oh.
it's going to be communication with the president directly.
Oh, great. Okay.
How many GPSA students are part of your group?
Oh my God, maybe 70 or something like that.
Yes.
Oh, no, I mean, how many graduate and professional students are there at WSU?
Oh, yeah.
How many people are you going to be representing?
I'm not sure about the number. I'm sorry.
I think there's
I don't either.
I think there's around 3,000.
That's, yeah,
There's
it's
some-
just under 3,000.
310.
Yeah. 300.
Not to be exact.
Wow, that's changed.
Do you want to apply for that position as well?
No.
You can't.
Also, we added Pullman at Large a number of years ago. We didn't used to have that.
Yep.
You
Okay.
remember that, Barbara? And then we also used to have a Pullman School District middle school parent. So we've played with this over
Yeah.
the years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with regard to protocol, since we're a committee and not a commission, we're not bound by public meeting laws, but it's up to the committee how they want to proceed with making this change.
I say we do a standard vote and
Yeah.
if everyone's okay with that. If I hear a
So I'll
motion.
motion to vote to add the GPSA onto our consistency.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that automatically would add the representative and alternate. So I don't know if you guys are planning on having like an alternate member, somebody who can come if you can't come, or somebody who, they can come anytime as well. But that's something that you guys can discuss and get back to us on too. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. I mean, traditionally, we would say, come up and join us, but. Okay.
No, I don't mean to be the fly in the ointment, but don't you have to apply and stuff? And-
No,
No,
for
it would be
that
an
position,
appointed
it's
position.
appointed by the organization.
Oh, got it.
Just like ASWSU.
Okay, so other ones.
Yes.
That happens,
So
okay.
we'll have to update our guidelines and to make sure that they're in there, because I know
Basically,
that
we have to do is when it says ASWSU and school district there, we have to simply add GPS.
Add GPSA,
GPSA
yeah.
there. And then in the first part of the guidelines, it lists all the constituencies, we add another line item there.
Yep.
And again, goes right first, what do we have here? Composition, so we'd have to add GPSA in section 2.
Okay. We can make a motion today to do that, or we can meet and talk about it
Whatever.
for that component, because that's.
Do we need to make a motion to do that? Since we just already added it?
I think you just did it.
In principle, by adding it, we
We just did
we
it.
just basically did it, so.
Okay.
Add it in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only question is, will Darby just add that, or do
Yeah.
we need, okay.
I'll do it, and I can send out the updated version to everyone.
Okay, see, I thought we had something specific in here.
There's another place. So as an exception, subject to C and E, if I could summon by SWSU, we'll have to add.
So under member appointment and duties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to add.
Darby, would you mind actually printing a copy after we do this voting on our guidelines today for everyone? Because we have so many new people, maybe
Yeah.
at our next meeting, we should hand out our
Bring
guidelines.
copies, yeah.
I know it's on the website, but it's always useful for people to have a copy. Okay. And, so we are still have our special topic.
Not here.
Jeff is still.
No, so,
Well, we want to move ahead to.
yeah, oh, did we want to move on with our special topic now?
Jeff is
Jeff's
not here
not
still.
here, yeah.
No? So, I mean, I didn't know if you guys had a time that he was, or was he saying that he would arrive at like 6 o'clock or?
He was gonna be here at 5:30, but we got a call after we got here that he was gonna be a little bit late.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so let's move on to our guidelines and subcommittee recommendations. So on the table, I hope you guys all received a copy of this. I didn't print out the guidelines, but we had some suggested updates to our guidelines. We met as a subcommittee, and we had a couple suggestions for updating. I don't know, some of you were probably here when we had a vote on our vice chair position, and it was the first time, I believe, in all of PAC history where there was a tie, and we didn't have anything within our bylaws, well, within our guidelines to deal with what would be the procedures if we had a tie. And after discussions with the subcommittee, we decided that maybe doing something where you would flip a coin, and I believe, what was the process here? A member having the longest consecutive membership of the committee being representative would be heads, and then the other member would be tail. So Chief Jenkins would flip a coin, and then that would determine how we would break that tie.
Doesn't specify if you have to flip it on your hand or
So we would have to monitor him, of course, to make sure there's no cheating.
What if they've been here the same amount of time?
Good question.
Well, then Chief Jenkins can select.
Well,
Really?
At that point, though, we did talk about having the person with the last name, in the alphabet go first, if it's like, R and T or something like that.
Because that's going to happen now, right?
Reverse order.
They were voted in on the same day.
Okay, has that ever happened?
Let's not bring that up.
Let's not worry about that. We'll update the guidelines again if that does happen. So as long as you guys are all okay with that, it was suggested that we would put that under subsection 4, and then we would put it under J, and therefore all the letters below J would obviously move.
Correct.
Yeah, it would replace the current J because it makes more sense to be in that spot after the previous statement. But if you guys are okay with doing that structure, where we had the idea, well, maybe we could do like co-vice chairs, but I don't know if that would be really an efficient thing for us to do because.
Yeah, that just became a little.
Yeah, it would make it too complicated. So we liked this idea a little better, but we're open to discussion on that.
Do we need to vote on it?
Yes, we do need to vote.
So,
I think we should go through all of our recommendations first, and then open it up for comments.
let's do one at a time, though. Do this one, vote on that, and then this can be a whole separate thing. How about?
Yeah, we could do that. We have other suggestions for updates when it comes to our attendance policies. And a lot of this, guidelines, has to do with just creating some consistency and some procedure on how to remove inactive members, not saying that members are being bad or anything, but let's say they move or disappear or something, they can no longer be on the committee. We need to have an internal method for removing members who are no longer active. And we haven't had that in the past, so I think we have some suggestions for updated structure, but I mean, I suggest before moving into talking about attendance that we talk about vote on the tying first.
I move we accept the written part, J, of how to proceed in the event of a tie vote.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, so I'm going to pass this off, and I'm going to let Eric walk us through this section. He was very kind to draft this for us and put this together. So I'll let you go ahead.
Corey, can I interrupt for just a second? Since Mr. Guillory is here now, is it okay if we table this and then listen?
Yes,
to Mr.
definitely. Thank you for that suggestion, because that could take a little bit of discussion. All right, so Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you coming here to talk to us about culturally sensitive policing. Gary, would you like to?
Sure. So We asked Jeff to come and do some training for the police department a few years ago on cultural awareness. And I didn't envy his position. That topic with police departments is very sensitive, and I have to say that I was extremely impressed with Jeff's presentation, and our officers received him very well. So we were extremely glad to have him available to do that for us, and I know he's done that for a number of law enforcement agencies and also at the university. So with that, Jeff, if I could have you step up to the podium there.
Sure.
We are recording this, just so that you know.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I'll only be here about 15 minutes or so, but I think it's important that governing bodies like yourself have sort of a refresher course on your perception of cultural competency types of subjects, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to lecture you for the next 15 or 20 minutes. All of you have life's experiences with people from multicultural backgrounds, but things are changing, and you need to know how they're changing. And what I'm going to do is just ask you a few questions and have you answer them, and you be your own judge as to whether or not you are culturally competent in today's world. And there's a lot of different things happening today. What we do in our department is collect situations that are current, that happen in real time. My colleagues are people who do cultural diversity training like me, but they're in the Pac-12, other Pac-12 schools. And so if something happens that's unique in San Francisco, my guy will call me and say, this is what happened, and those are the kinds of things that are happening now. So we try to relay that information to you and then give you some idea maybe how to make decisions differently. So first of all, I'll ask all of you this question, and maybe you can find a piece of paper to write the answer down, or you can keep it in your head. It's either way you should be able to answer it. When you greet a person for the first time, we normally say, how are you and what do you do? That's normally what we say. But how would you respond if you asked the person, greet a person, and they said to you, tell me who you are, but don't tell me about anything that you do? How would you answer that person? It makes you think, doesn't it? There's several places in the world, Middle East, Southeast Asia, Native Americans in our country, that will greet you in that same way. And you have to be prepared to answer questions like that. We here in America want to know what you do. It basically gives us some idea of maybe the kind of person you are. So if I'm from an Arab country, and you met me for the first time, and we shake hands, and I ask you, tell me who you are. What am I asking you? Maybe I'm a Native American. You've come to maybe the Snoqualmie tribe to meet some of the dignitaries there, and they ask you, tell me who you are, my friend. Would anybody in this room know what he meant or she meant, and what they were asking you? Any idea? Makes you think. And we tell our students this: you need to be prepared to build a relationship. I'll give the answer in just a minute. About 15 years ago, Boeing sent a representative to Saudi Arabia to broker a multi-million-dollar airplane deal. When the young man and his wife got there, the emir of the palace was waiting for them. Escorted them into the palace where they were holding Ramadan, a pretty important Muslim holiday. And invited the young man in and his wife. When they went inside, they were celebrating the traditional meal. The men were sitting on the floor eating the meal with their hands. The women were in the next room because traditionally women don't eat with men on Ramadan in a situation like that. They had a giant pot with the traditional goat meat, rice, and vegetables. The emir invited the Boeing representative to join them for the meal. The man from Boeing looked at the meal and said, I don't know if I like goat meat. I got any chicken maybe or some fish. And they found him something. Then he looked at the sharing situation, which it was none, and he said, you know, can anybody bring me a chair? I don't want to sit on the floor. I just bought this suit. And so the emir of the palace said, okay. And then suddenly his wife walks in from the next room where she was dining with the other ladies and said, you know, in our country, we don't sit separate from our husbands, so I want to sit with my husband. At that point, the emir speaks to one of his servants. Servant leaves the room, comes back about 20 minutes later and whispers something in the emir's ear. Any idea what he may have whispered to the emir? Any thought?
We just made a deal with Airbus.
He said, sir, your plane is ready,
Yeah.
but not the one you came to buy. He kicked him out of the country. He lost the deal and his job when he got back to Seattle. What could he have done to build a better relationship, or the beginning of a relationship with the emir? What could he have done better, you think?
Learn about the culture before you go.
Yes, yes. Ask questions. Even if he didn't learn about it before he went, he could have asked questions. If he didn't understand something, ask questions. But it cost Boeing a lot of money. And from that point on, all Fortune 500 companies, that was a precedent moment for them. And to the company, each said, we will not hire anybody unless they can demonstrate the understanding of different cultures, their norms, expectations, behaviors, and customs. So our students have to know this stuff in order to qualify for a job in today's world. All important organizations and companies require a working knowledge of other cultural values, norms, expectations, and behaviors. That's what's going on today out in the real world. So that's what we do. We give our students the real situations that actually happen so they can understand what's going on. Now, when a person meets you for the first time and they ask you that question, normally they're asking you if you know who your people are. Somebody might say, well, I'm German. And then I'll follow up with, what part of Germany does your family come from? What costumes do they wear? What songs do they sing? What type of food do they eat? Who are you? We're not accustomed to answering a question like that because I've heard many times people say, well, I'm Heinz 57 or something like that. Ask yourself, how am I going to develop a relationship with this person when I'm expecting to hear about their background, their culture, and I don't know mine? In today's world, it's critical to know that information. Give me a one-word answer to these statements. I'll start with this one, and maybe you could, if you could, write that one word down. I'll go kind of fast, but there's a method to my madness, and I'll give you some answers. The first question is, not the question, the first statement is, a Mexican immigrant is seen opening, well, he was wearing a t-shirt and a pair of jeans, and he had a set of keys on his belt. And he was seen opening the door of a CEO's office late one night about 10 o'clock. Who is he?
The CEO? Oh, write it down.
I was going to give others a chance to do that, but that's okay. That's all right. That's the idea. That's the idea. This time, write it down on a piece of paper. We'll ask you more. All right. Let's say a middle-aged woman is seen walking through the hallways of a hospital late one evening. Who is she? She's wearing white. Any thoughts? Okay, what did you write? Anybody?
Nurse.
Doctor.
Doctor.
Patient.
A doctor? Yeah. She's a doctor. A well-dressed woman is seen thanking passengers for flying on a famous airline that she's on. And after they leave, she takes her place on the plane. Who is she?
I can't write these down.
She's the pilot.
Just say it.
Okay. All right. You should have an idea of where I'm going with this. The next one is a white man with a shaved head is seen marching in a parade wearing carrying a flag in northern Idaho. Who is he? Who is he? Well, I know you know who he is. You have an idea who is it. Anybody else?
The president of the WSU Young Republicans.
He's a cancer patient. Or a military guy. But you can see how your first impression is just there. It's like you put on your jacket or coat to come to work. It's just there. You have it. The question is, what else is going on besides your first thoughts? Many times we rely on that first thought to make a decision, and there may be some other situations layered in that consequence. Young woman walks through that door. She's 6'4". What's the likelihood of your first thoughts being is basketball?
Volleyball.
Or volleyball. Yeah. But she may be coming in that door thinking, I hope for the 20th time somebody doesn't ask me if I play sports. So, again, your first thought may be, it may be a stereotypical thought. Most people would think that. But in our business, especially decision makers, you have to consider other types of decisions or other answers. Man in a white shirt with a tie on hands a woman a memo to critique for him. Who's the man?
Anybody.
She's the clerical help. She's the boss.
Yeah.
And I hear your hesitance in answering these questions, but I think that your first thoughts are in there anyway. They're there. So the question is, how do you approach situations that are critical? Some situations you have to make decisions, snap decisions, when you're almost forced to make a decision using your first thoughts, when sometimes it could be catastrophic. An Tron was a young man, a Vietnamese American who was applying for a job. When he went into the place to interview for his job, a man named Dan approached him. And Dan got acquainted with An. He said, and he asked questions. He said, An, I just want to tell you welcome. We're really glad to have you here. My wife really likes going to the fingernail shops over in Moscow. And we really like to to invite people from Vietnam to join this organization. We welcome you, my friend. Next time, and by the way, you speak very good English and you seem very articulate. And when he finished his line of questioning, An left, and he was very upset when he left. Any thoughts why An was upset?
He was not Vietnamese.
Say again?
He was not Vietnamese, maybe.
Think about that. What would be your first clue that Dan should have paid attention to avoid the mistakes that he made, stereotypical mistakes? Any thoughts? His first clue was that An is a Vietnamese American. That's his first clue. So he would have avoided some of those questions that were stereotypical questions. You speak good English, right? What do you know? We're pleased to have a Vietnamese person come and apply for the job. He's a 5th or 6th generation American, and from a Vietnamese family. He doesn't speak the language. He's never been to Vietnam. He doesn't know anything about Vietnam. In fact, later on when he came back, when he felt better, he said, I'm from LA, man. I like hip hop. Sometimes we have to think about our questions before we ask. Sometimes you want to bounce it off one of your colleagues just to see how it feels, see how it sounds. Police officers and riding together in a car, both have been friends for a long time, worked together 20 years. One of the guys has a bad habit of calling people by their stereotypical names. They'll say that. We got to go talk to this fag again. He's just not, being lawful. Or he may say, that chick over there, or that colored guy over there, or that WAP over here, or you get the idea. That's the kind of language he uses to describe the people that he's supposedly supposed to serve. It can be man or woman. Now, this person is your friend. He's been your friend a long time. You're that other officer. What are you going to tell him? Now, he's harmless. He's not a racist. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to imply that. But he uses lazy, stereotypical questions just to describe people. Now, I don't want the book answer. I want to know what would you tell your friend who spoke that way? Any thoughts of what would you say and why?
I'll just say, just because could be quite blunt. So I have someone at work that will contact their people or talk to their people and they say, oh, this is my people, my people, my people. And I always communicate, it's like, no, it's your staff or your employees. It's like you don't own them. And so I'm very vocal. And so for me, I would be quite blunt and vocal and say, no, that's not appropriate. It's not respectful. And we need to say, more appropriate, respectful things when we're talking about people. But that's just me.
Sure. That's right. I mean, think of other reasons why it's important to address this guy or woman. Why is it most important for you?
Well, that's my partner.
Yes.
If somebody hears that, they're in a clumpus together.
That's right. That's right. You'll be measured by your relationship with this person. If you've been with them 20 years, well, they know that you haven't tried to correct them. So you must have the same type of issue. And a lot of that stuff comes from people who really aren't racist. And they're good people. But they practice lazy way of describing people stereotypically and can cause problems. And you have to sort of nip that in the bud. If you have a set of workplace standards, then under working relationships, that category of working relationships along with quality of work and quantity of work and all that, that part should be renewed and revisited, because that's a critical part of law enforcement work is public relations and how you talk about people and deal with people on a professional level. A man who happened to be a Caucasian, it works for the Nez Perce tribe. He works at the casino. And it comes down, the notice comes down that he has to take the orientation. And he refused. He said, I don't want to take that orientation. I don't like powwows. I'm not really fond of the Native American culture. I do great work. I've got great evaluations on my job. I happen to be a gardener. So why do I have to take this orientation when my work speaks for me? My work speaks for me. Why do I have to take the orientation? Any thoughts? Why is it absolutely critical, even though he's a good employee for the Nez Perce tribe? Why is it critical for him to take the orientation?
In some ways, he's representing them while he's working there?
Yes. Anything else?
It's like sooner or later he's going to run into and have to deal with the person from the different culture, and so if he has to know how to do it, because otherwise he's gonna not treat them in a respectful manner.
That's a perfectly legitimate answer. But there's another side of that, because I think that's one that we all understand. Get to know the people, get to know their culture, right? And they're friendlier to you, possibly. But there's another side that that applies to me. My wife is Native American, and I live on the reservation. There's some things in the cultures that I just don't like. I just don't participate. But I had some of my best friends are over there, and they understand. So why is it still so important for him to take that orientation? There's the other side is business necessity. If Ole and Inga drove up in one of those tour buses, they got off, and Ole says, look at this beautiful place. All the colors and the fish that are designed, and it look as though they're going upstream. Who did that? Sir, me. I'm pruning my roses. what does all of this mean? Who are these people? What's their language? I don't know. I didn't take the orientation. What does that do for the brand? It's important that we understand why it's important to know that culture. Not necessarily just make friends, but the business end of it. Any employer you work for, especially in the Fortune 500 companies, they'll want to know if you understand that. If you understand the business needs of that organization, and you know the culture. Let me put you all on the spot. How many of you went to WSU or worked at WSU at some point? Okay. How was that school created? How did it start?
Tribal land, wasn't it?
Yeah, tribal land. Most people would say, what's the bill?
Moral. Moral land.
Say again.
The moral land.
Yeah, most people say they ceded land. They received ceded land. Well, it was even before that. It was they met the Nez Perce people. And how many of you use the word Palouse? Everybody raise your hand. Can anybody give me a definition of the word Palouse? Where does it come from?
Comes from the Palouse tribe?
Yes,
Yeah.
Palouse Indians. Yes. Very good. I have a lot of people who don't know that answer, but that's what it means. It means the Palouse Indians that were here, along with the Nez Perce. My wife's grandmother was born down at Wawawi. And at that time, they had villages before the dam that extended all the way to Lewiston, Lewiston, along what is now that river. Well, it was a low kind of creek in those days, and they built homes, teepees, and homes all along there. One more, then I'll let you guys go because I know I'll have a few minutes. Let's see. I've got a lot in my head. I'm trying to think of the right one here. You guys have a picnic. You're having a picnic, and the purpose of the picnic is to make new employees that you've recently hired feel welcome. So you're out in the park and you have this picnic going on, and you have a couple of. I'll just make something up. You have 4 employees that you've just hired, and they're introducing themselves. One employee is married to another employee, new employee. And they introduce themselves as husband and wife, but they're of the same sex. When they introduce themselves, one of your co-workers grabs his children, gets angry, and takes off and says, I'll be dang, he said something else, if I'm going to let somebody come in here and let my kids hear this kind of trash. You know, I didn't raise my kids to hear that noise. So he leaves. And you put on this picnic. You're in charge of that picnic. What are you going to do about that? What do? You see this happen. It's your responsibility. You put this picnic on. What are you going to do?
You go to that couple and say, I am so sorry
That's
that
the
happened.
first thing you should do, yes. Why is it important to apologize? Because, go ahead.
It shows that his actions don't represent the whole company.
That's exactly right. That's critical. And they are message carriers, folks. They're going to leave that party and they're going to tell whomever how they were treated. And they won't just say you or you. They're going to say Washington State University. And so we all get labeled. What else? How would you handle some of the other stuff? You got a rogue employee there. You're going to have to deal with that person. So what are you going to do? How do you handle that person? You going to fire him?
You sit down with them and let them know that when you take this action at a work-related event, that you're representing us as a community. And you may keep your own beliefs within your own house, but this is a community where we have to be open-minded and accepting and understanding and embracing.
Very well said, very well said. And they did nothing illegal. Legal in the state of Washington to be married and to be gay. So we have to watch that. I have 20 more I'm going to share with you, but there's not time. So that's what we do, and we think it's the best way to get people back into the present. There's things that are going on. I'll give you one last one, but it's not a quiz. The last one I got from Stanford, a friend of mine at Stanford. this professor was beginning the class. The students were piling in, and one of the students sat in front of the class with a T-shirt on that had a swastika on the front. You're the faculty member, real quick, what would you do about that? That's what's happening today. So what would you do about that, and why?
I might put him on the spot and ask him all the questions that he knows about that history.
The history of the symbol. That's a good way of doing it. Keep it in the realm of education. It's a great way of doing it. Anything else?
Do you handle that differently if you're at Stanford, which is a private institution, versus WSU, which is a public institution?
That's a good question. Can anybody answer that? We still have the First Amendment, right? Yeah. It applies at public or private school. You can't ask that person to take that shirt off in class. First Amendment. What are you going to do? Well, this faculty member decided to make a educational subject out of it, and said, class, look at what he has on. Now that symbol not only represents what he might think it represents, but there's Native Americans who use it. There are other cultures in the world that use that. And we're going to do a study on that. So that's your homework. You come back tomorrow and give me at least 10 cultural ways that symbol is used. She didn't start a fire with that person. She let them wear the T-shirt until she got with faculty administration and got an answer for it. The answer was, if you're not going to let that person wear the T-shirt, you have to have some sort of policy that says that. Or tell people you have a standard now, and you can only wear certain types of clothes, but you have to apply it to everybody. That's what happened. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take off. I've got to go do something else in the classes there. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you later.
I just wanted to add a clarification to that. He makes a very good point about First Amendment, but that would not apply in the K-12 situation. I think in the K-12 situation, you could very easily ask that student to cover up or remove that shirt.
So I was going to ask a question, but we didn't get a chance to. But for the K through 12, so do they have trainings for the students? Like
For the students?
Yeah.
There is cultural competency curriculum throughout the K-12 scope and sequence. So it's bits and pieces every year.
And also I need to verification something he said about the story about the Boeing and Saudi Arabian about the mixed, sometimes we mix it between the Islamic religion rules and traditional. So separate because he mentioned fasting Ramadan. That is the whole month of the old Muslims. So we talk about in that month we separate when the eating is separating men and women. It's not a religion. This is a traditional. So in religion, no, we eat together. So sometimes is mixed. This one I need to correct this for him, but he's so far. So that's sometimes we need to understand the culture. We need to understand what within the culture, what did they come from the culture and custom, what did they come from the religions.
Yeah.
So the mix of these things sometimes is not. We talk about put the scarf from the face in the Muslim woman. This is traditional, not from Islam. So sometimes it's present the Islam is women cover his face. So that's is traditional. So just it is. I like this presentation. Thank you, Chief, to present that like that because we're facing a lot of what he said now, especially for my wife when he wear hijab and especially in summer. They have a lot of a question about how he wear this one in hot weather or something. This is also some of the need to ask good questions and to prepare to treat the people in respect about their religions and their culture.
So you're saying you get questions or Is that what you're saying? Like
Well,
your wife, she gets questions?
Yes, they get a question about the how she wears these heavy clothes in the summer. About
Is that hard for her? Or is that what you're
yes,
saying?
yes, yeah, because this is he wearing this one in our country, and she feel comfortable to waiting here in hot weather. So,
Yeah.
and this question sometimes hurt the Muslim woman.
I'm going to say something very self-serving here. It was a very good presentation. But the Saudi Arabia Boeing thing, I'm a retired historian, and I'm often asked, why study history? You can't get a job. Well, you saw why study history.
Yeah.
You know what the hell's going on. Okay.
I think that was really good, and I think it's something that we don't often talk about or often think about, and I think it's a good reminder. I've thought about these things in the past, even being, I kind of work for a good old boys club, a great good old boys club. They're all good clubs. They're all great men. It's just being a woman, you know, especially a pregnant woman last year, I was perceived as a secretary. And so when I say, no, I'm an executive director, I always get the, oh wow, and a firmer handshake. So it's interesting, like, if they see one woman sitting in a room, sitting there typing and writing, you would assume that I'm the secretary of the committee. But, so I relate to that, and I think about it, and I think it's important that in the context we can all relate to that if you think about a situation in your life and how important that is, especially when we're thinking about officers and future officers making, you know, split-second decisions about, you know, what they're seeing in front of them, and knowing, you know, how to split up in their mind what is coming from stereotype, but what's coming from real situations of what's happening in front of them. So, yeah, I really appreciated that. So we can send our thank yous. That would be great, because it was a great presentation.
So, Gary, one question I'm curious. In, say, your interview process and stuff, do you cover, I mean, how do you cover cultural, to find out where potential officers are at in that kind of way?
Well, probably mostly from the background investigation that we do, and we talk to, you know, we don't just talk to references, we talk to people who they worked with that aren't listed as references. We talk to neighbors and family members. So it's a pretty thorough background, and that's, we hope that we can find those things before we hire somebody. And also, Greg does some pretty thorough interviews during his psychological assessments for us as well.
And I've sat through police interviews as they're building their pool a couple times, and there's a couple of good questions, and there's no perfect answer, but it lets you know if it's something they've thought about.
Yeah.
And when they say, well, cultural awareness is being aware of different cultures, you know they haven't thought about it. So that at least gives you something that they've at least processed that and thought about it beforehand. Because we get some really good answers, and we get some really, really bad answers.
Questions? So I don't hear any more discussion, so I guess we can go ahead and move on to back to our guidelines discussion. And I will pass that off to Eric to talk about our attendance section.
So, under attendance, sections A and B, the committee had in the past sort of discussed these things, but never got put into guidelines. So, basically what I'm suggesting is a maximum of 3 unexcused absences per calendar year. Basically, what we'd see is that, we see from B, but an unexcused absence is basically when you're gone and you don't let the committee secretary know that you're not gonna be able to, attend the regular meeting. And so basically, in A, you would just see that after, if someone's been gone 3 times and haven't let the committee secretary know before that time, they'd be notified, and then if there's no response, or if they don't keep coming, then they'll be removed from the member list. So anyway, that sort of covers A and B. C through E goes on to talk basically about absences that, not just unexcused, but basically it's how often you have to attend a meeting if you're a member. The way it's written currently, that would only apply, C would only apply to primary representatives, which not alternates. That could be discussed, but basically that's the way it's written up right now. And percentages is basically half the time they need to attend. Basically, we want people who will attend a committee if they're part of it and be active on it. So, and then D basically covers committee officers, which would be the chair and vice chair. They have duties to perform basically, and so we'd like to put a higher threshold on for them, which would be 75% of their meetings. And then E addresses, let's say someone has health, basically it's written, I just put down health circumstances, but something comes health-wise, or something comes up so they need to be gone more times, but they want to stay part of the committee, they want to come as much as they can. There's basically an allowance for asking, hey, I have this issue that came up, can I take some extra time off or not show up and still hold my post? So E sets a procedure whereby that could be considered by the committee chair.
We could change that to like extenuating circumstances or something that's a little more ambiguous than health related.
Yeah. So if I can just add, so the committee, so we're calling ourselves the Guidelines Subcommittee. So we meant to look at this, and we came up with the 3 unexcused absences per year instead of 3 in a row. That way, it's just if something does happen, then we can just make it over a calendar year or however fiscal year.
It says calendar, that's what I wrote.
And then they'll just be excused off. And then the other ones, it's the primary representative. I do think we should probably put the alternate in there as well. Yeah, because I mean they can vote as well, right? So
If
only on elections.
If the primary representative is not in attendance.
Yeah,
but they can vote if the primary is not in attendance.
Yes.
So then they should also have to be in here for an attendance as well, I think.
So here's the question: do you want to tie that into whether the primary representative is here, or we can just delete the primary representative and have a general rule for all committee members?
And this is definitely open discussion,
Yes,
because this is something we had met about, talked about, and you guys are all welcome to give input on. So
I like that as written.
Yeah.
But I'm an alternate.
You don't get to vote on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Unless
an
you're,
alternate
unless
doesn't
your
have
primary's
real
not here.
voting rights, then I can see them not putting it in. But if they have voting rights, then they should be required to have attendance as well.
The issue with the alternate is you'd like the alternates to be around when the primaries aren't there, right? I mean, that's sort of the idea of the alternate, so that if the primary isn't there, the alternate will be there.
Yeah.
But trying to enforce that kind of system, it takes a lot of extra work. Then it's like, oh, the primary is not here today, quick, call the alternate, right? And that's
But we also
extra.
want to make sure that whether you're or not you're the primary or alternate, your voice on the committee is equally important.
Right.
So having you here is important for the success and ongoing working of our committee regardless.
The
So-
truth is,
I would almost ask the question historically, what's the value of having the alternates other than just having a backup? But isn't it now how we're working almost to representation from each of these different areas? Rather than having the backup? Because
That is
perhaps
true
I
for
don't
some.
have, or alternates don't have all voting capacity, but a lot of alternates are here
Anyway.
in full capacity.
yeah. Here's the thing, it's like, I sort of feel like we don't do a ton of voting that's like significant issues. Most of what happens is discussion. We hear something, we discuss it, we talk about it. And every now and then, we do come up with something to vote on that's more than just approved minutes or something, you know?
Yeah, I just look at it as, some people will put this, for like on the resume, which will also come to another question about the letter of appointments. And if you're going to join a committee, whether it be the representative or the alternate, you need to have some responsibility of coming. So if there is an attendance issue, everybody on the committee who is appointed should have an attendance policy.
But that's what's addressed in A and B, right?
Yeah, that
A.
That is
A
unexcused.
covers
So
Yeah, that's unexcused.
technically on A, every single time you could email Darby, say, I'm not coming, and stay on the
Right.
committee.
So like if you did that 11 times, it would be excused. But let's say it makes it so you could really only do that for 50% of the meetings. So about 5.25 meetings, depending on the year. So it just makes it so that you can't seek a longer time to be excused than that time period. And we've had members in situations where that would have been a good rule for us to have, just because in case there's no communication with the person, in case things like that happens.
Given that it's just emailing Darby to be excused, is there any reason to differentiate between excused and unexcused?
Yes, because if you don't write her, no one hears from you, we don't know anything about you. You could have moved across the country, we don't know. And so it's like, the goal is, if you just vanish, it only takes 3 months and we realize, okay, this person's gone, you know?
It's just like a kid missing school. I have to send in and say, my daughter's going to be out for an ortho appointment. Please excuse her from her classes.
But it's not going to hurt anyone who just missed one and didn't email and got busy and, went to the beer festival. I mean, it's not going to hurt you. But if you go to the beer festival 3 months in a row and don't email Darby, I mean,
So we have period time for send this email like before the meeting, 1 day or something? Or
yeah, and even if it happened a meeting after, I don't think committee members would be like, whoa, they emailed the meeting after, it's time to kick them off, so. But,
You're talking about how soon Darby needs to hear, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when they
When do they send?
time, yes.
I mean, obviously, the way it's written up, it says prior to the meeting. My impression is that Darby gets her emails pretty much right up till the meeting, so. The way it stands now, it's.
We should probably put that language in there that if you're going to need to miss the meeting, you need to do so, you need to email before.
Well, it says the member shall inform the committee secretary prior to the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It said somewhere in here that Darby doesn't get enough emails, so that we need to start emailing him.
I've been looking for more
I was
email.
on it.
Yes.
That's fine. So going back to C, so that was my thought of, anybody who's on the committee should have attendance policy, even though Adam wants to keep missing the meetings, but I'm not going to count it.
Actually, I prefer everybody be representatives and then everybody's held to the same standard.
I like that idea as well, because really, what does the alternate do that?
I don't know, I'm an alternate technically. I think I've been in every position on here, so.
I think that fits better for some folk than others. I think for those positions that are appointed, like ASWSU and the Pullman School District, and particularly I think for Pullman School District, that's an amount of time that maybe two people cannot commit to their civic service, but that so that one of them being primary and having the other one be there if the primary can't do it. That, to me, that for those positions it makes sense.
So that actually kind of brings up a point I was whispering to Greg earlier, is maybe those positions that are appointed to the committee should probably not be representatives, but more ex officio to the committee, because they're not going through the same interview process that members from the community are.
That's right.
What, when you say ex officio, what do you mean by that?
Ex officio would be representatives from another committee. Perfect example is these groups, ASWSU, GPSA, representing those groups and their concerns, and are appointed to our committee. And we hold a place on our committee for them, but they're not our members. They're not our traditional representatives because of the appointment process.
Yes, and of course we want them at the meetings, but typically an ex officio doesn't have an attendance policy in.
So,
Yes, and
or
could change those.
the other thing that we could do is simply enter in here and say those three organizations would be exempt from attendance policies because we don't. Because basically it means if they're not attending and we say we have an issue with this, we go to the school district, ASWSU, you know.
Do they need a seat on our board, on our committee anymore? That's what you would go with an ex officios. You'd go back and to the organization, say, we noticed you're not represented at our committee anymore.
Yeah.
Do you still need a seat?
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes more sense to have the ex officio instead of just saying that they're exempt, because then when you say they're exempt for this, it's exactly what an ex officio means.
Do ex officio have a vote?
They do not.
They do not.
Oh, I'm opposed to that. I think the votes ought to be as broad as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
I think their voice should be heard, and I would be in favor of them voting.
Yeah.
So if we list them as ex officio, then we could list them as voting ex officio members.
When you guys started working on this, was there a problem you were wanting to solve?
We just went through the entire document, and then we're like, oh, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why is this? And we were looking at the policy, and we just kind of went through every single line, just updating it.
As far as attendance, we have had issues in the past, yes, with people who get on the committee and vanish and or just don't come to the meetings. So
It's
yes.
not overly common, but
Well-
and it has happened because of health issues for people, but there's been situations where, you know, I really needed a vice chair for a while. And I went through like the whole pregnancy and starting 2 new jobs without really any help. And I mean, I thought Charlene was going to be a great vice chair, and it's definitely not her fault that health issues came up. It's just we needed to have some sort of structure for how to deal with it, especially if she couldn't return and wasn't able to make contact with us. It would have been nice because I pretty much just emailed Eric, hey, can you cover this meeting? But it wasn't like there was any official process for taking care of that. So we just wanted to prevent any kind of issues from happening in the future in case that's a situation like that were to arise.
The history of this place is that we often didn't have enough to vote.
Yeah.
We didn't have a quorum. I'd say we're doing great on that dimension right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure why we're changing something when this committee's working much more effectively now than it used to.
Right.
Who was before you? I'm just trying to blank, Darby.
Before me,
Yeah.
Alicia.
Right. I mean, we'd all have to call her and go, do we have enough to even come to the meeting tonight? There might be 3 people sitting here.
Darby brings us all
So
together.
here's the
Yes,
thing,
she
it's
did.
like, as of late, yes, it's been better, but it wasn't that long ago that, I mean, with Corey here, we've dealt with issues of not having enough quorum, for a quorum.
A couple of times.
Couple times, yes. And so, I think a couple years.
They're looking to get you off, Greg.
No one's leaving
I
the
think
committee.
a couple years ago, back when we talked about, we voted on A and B, but at that time we were able to clear off some of the people who had joined the committee and just no longer came. I don't know if they'd moved or who knows what, but we were able to do that, and I think that helped jumpstart getting new people on and what we have now.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like we would like to see, at the very least, see A and B on there so that people who quit talking to us or quit talking to the chair and secretary can be gone, because clearly they either don't want to be part of it or they're moved. That's the number one thing, so that we can move on people who have just disappeared.
So a suggestion that I have in regards to the specific percentage policy, and I don't know if you want the language to be a little bit more specific in regards to like stating representative and alternate, but I was thinking maybe if it said represented constituency, like that represented constituency needs to have some sort of representation at this % of meetings every year, and not necessarily listing representative and alternate, so that you don't necessarily need to specify the difference or distinguish.
I do know that Nathan mentioned that you wanted to kind of tweak some of the language with your attorney brain.
Oh, I had some questions too, like what does resume attending regular meetings mean? Like, does that,
Well, that one, I think that was left in there because at first it was 3 absences in a row.
Yeah.
So we're doing 3 absence over a calendar year and then they'll be off. So I think that we can actually
So here's the
take out.
question related to that. Some of this language actually came from a different, I looked up online and, so it's like, how do you want to handle this? Because you could handle things of saying, okay, everyone, you're officially notified, this is our policy. If you violate our policy, you're out. And that's, the way it's set up here is, here's our policy. If you don't meet this, we're gonna give you another chance, and then if you don't meet it again, we're gonna kick you out. So,
I think with that needs to have different language in there.
What?
Well, I don't know, I'm not very good at the language part, but we need to have something though that it says, if, the chair or Darby emails them, contacts them, and they want to resume, then we need to have more language that says that they could have an ability to stay on with just one chance, but we need to have a little bit more language.
They could become active.
What it says right here is that they will be advised by the chair or secretary of their attendance record and asked to become active or resign. So that's giving them another chance. And then it's wait and see.
Yep.
And that's in the past when that's come up since the attendance policy. Usually it's like I'll send an email and say, hey, we've noticed you haven't attended in a while. Do you intend to remain on the committee or would you like to give up your position kind of thing? And then usually that's when they say either, oh, sorry, I don't have time anymore, go ahead and fill my position, or explain, oh, I'm so sorry, I had something come up, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminds them, hey.
There's been 2 beer festivals this summer for me to come.
That line, the member does not resume attending regular meetings, like how many did they have to attend, or does this whole cycle start all over again?
I guess my question was, like, so you say unless they resume attending meetings. Well, if you have somebody misses 3 in 1 year, they send a letter and you say, yeah, I'll start attending, and they attend 2 meetings, and then January 1st comes around, they have 2 more unexcused meetings. Are they back to 0 and they get to have 3 more that year, or are you considering?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think I'll clarify that.
Yeah, that's where it just needs to be clarified in there, because it's just a little confusing on that part.
Yeah.
Okay, so given that there's still some discussion on this, I think that maybe we should have the subcommittee meet one more time, finalize some of this language.
Sounds good.
And then we will put this on the agenda for the next meeting, given we are running up
Yeah.
on time here. Is that an okay? I mean, we already voted on this
I
first
think it's
section,
good.
which would be relevant for the election.
We can get a tiebreaker in for the tiebreaker too.
No, I think that's
Um,
fine.
Okay.
So we need to, well, we voted on that, right?
Yes, we did vote
good,
on that.
so,
Yes, we
yeah.
only just need
Yeah.
attendance that we need
Yeah.
to
Right.
talk about.
And could I just second Jordan's suggestion that the committee might consider, rather than talking about a representative committee member, but rather a represented constituency? Because in the past, it seems to me that the representative was the representative and had to take some responsibility if they knew they weren't going to be there to call their backup and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to meet that. At least I did that before Matt was my backup. And we would, if one couldn't be there, we were often able, because of that notification, to see that there was somebody representing our constituency. So I'd just like to suggest you consider that language.
Do we have a phone log? Because like I don't have Nathan's phone number. Want to give it to me?
I can give it to you. Question with that scenario, then if the attendance, if the attendance policy kicked in and a constituency was gone for whatever we decide to do, 3 in a calendar year or whatever, then who's responsible for that? The
That's a
primary?
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, though, of why we have representatives and then alternates, because that makes sense of how it was practiced.
Yeah.
If we could get to a model back to that, then the two differences in titles make perfect sense. But that's not how we're practicing today.
The question is, what do we want to do? Do you want more people here? Or do you want to treat it like truly like a primary alternate thing, you know?
Yeah, I like people here. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm kind of with, as an alternate, I'm with Adam. If we want people to be here, then why not have 2 people vote?
You might want to have several votes at the next meeting about
Yes.
these issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
I think
number
that
of
makes
issues.
a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So we'll meet as a subcommittee and we'll go through it.
Start talking about some of these things.
Well, maybe decide the issues that you want to get
Have
input
them not
from
show up.
the committee on,
Yeah.
as compared to us yay or naying whatever you guys write, because there's some hot topics here that
Yeah.
are worth considering.
I think if you come to a meeting, you should have a vote.
But you're a historian. My job.
I already spoke to why you should
No.
study history, so.
Richard's gonna be here at every meeting. We live next door to each other. I see him pulling out. It's like, oh, stay home. Cool. And then I got a call from Darby, and I'm here all the time now. No, the constituency versus alternate and representative. I like this discussion. Let's decide something together about what to do. This is a great topic.
I think it is, okay, well,
Usually it's the ASWSU folks that have a hard time both being here, so look at this, you already broke the mold right now. You know, I mean, historically, we get one or the other and usually no one, so good for you guys. I agree with you, Corey, lots of people here is a good meeting.
yep.
So here's one thing about,
More
like,
seats, though.
Yeah.
here's the
See what
one
we
thing
can think, yeah.
about
There's
having,
seat here, Adam.
just like, rather than primary ultimate, it'd be like first or second or something like that. They both have voting rights. The thing about that is, you wouldn't have to fill both. Just saying. So, anyway.
We'll have this discussion, we'll bring
Yes.
it back to the committee, and if we can meet soon enough, maybe we can send out in like 2 or 3 weeks a draft to the committee so they can think about discussion ahead of time. Thank you. So,
And I'll check the excused absences or not on both Barbara and Richard before the next meeting.
okay, yeah,
Sure
we're
that's
on that,
right.
we're making sure, that, yeah.
They're tricky, those two. You gotta keep an eye on them, you know.
So we'll meet as a subcommittee and discuss this, but can we real quick talk about the letter of appointments?
Yes.
So one of the things that I brought up was letter of appointments. So as I mentioned earlier, that some people, will use us, the committees and different things that they're on as for service, especially for ASWSU and GPSA, that you guys will use that for your service. And so I think it would be a good idea for anybody who's appointed, all the committee members, that we are given letters of appointments from Chief Jenkins.
Since you need more work.
Yeah.
That's my
We're
work for
keeping
Darby.
you.
I send it to
She needs more emails, you need more letters.
But that way it's an official document for anybody who is also using this as service for them.
I have a question.
Yes.
HWCU and school district and those people are not going to be appointed by the police chief, right? Or are they?
Well, but if they are our members on here, they are still members of.
So then it's
Because
not
then
really,
we have to figure out,
it's
look at
sort of
ex
a
officio.
member, it's just saying you are, a letter that just says you're a member here then.
Well, it's an appointed letter.
A letter of appointment, just acknowledging
that you are on the member, on the committee.
Is that something that you guys would mind producing for committee members?
Consider it done.
We'd love to. Thank you. I don't think that's something we need to vote on, but we just request that from them.
So I think it'd be a good idea.
We appreciate that. Thank you. All right, so the rest will be tabled for the next meeting. I'm not attending. We still have to get through our chair and vice chair nominations and voting. So it is September, 3 years. Wow, I have been sitting here 3 years. I was in my 20s when I started, and now I'm in my 30s. How did that happen? So I was nominated 3 years ago on my birthday, and I was like, well, this was the best birthday gift ever. I'm going to be doing some community service, and it's been a wonderful time. So now we have to do, let's see, I believe it's in our guidelines. We do the chair position first.
You have pens or
I have a couple
something, so-
extras. Might have to share. I don't think I have enough. I'll see what I can do to.
And you guys are welcome to put other names in if you guys decide.
Yeah.
Since we have new members, I would suggest that the candidates make a statement so that those that have been, heard their statement before can hear them.
Yes, okay, perfect. So before I ask for people's statements of running, is there anyone else who would like to add their name, or would anyone else like to nominate somebody else or themselves?
And make sure if you're on there, you're okay with it. That just means you were
Yes,
nominated.
you are still okay with it.
Doesn't necessarily
Both
mean
of
you
you.
want to do it.
Hearing no discussion, I will start. I have been doing this for 3 years now. I really enjoy what I do with the police department and being on this committee. I believe in the mission of being the liaison between the police department and the community. I think that it's an essential thing that we have, and I think it's very unique that we have it for the size of population that we have. And it's a great opportunity to connect to the community on a regular basis. I really enjoy participating and doing interviews for the police department. And I just generally have a lot of passion for being a part of this and leading this group, because you guys are a great group of people, and it's been a lot of fun, and the growth has been a lot of fun. So that's what I'm going to say.
For myself, guess I've been here, 4 years or something. I've enjoyed being part of it, of being a member on this committee, and it's like when basically, I've seen, we used to have a co-chair who was very involved and great support, and over the last year or whatever, there's just not been the support there. And I see the role of vice chair as basically to support the chair, be there when she is not able to be there, put in the hours necessary to help her out, and anyway, so basically I'm basically always here. Occasionally, there's maybe been once a year that I don't make it here, but for the most part, I'm here all the time. And I enjoy taking leadership roles. And I really believe in what this committee does and being the voice for the community, the liaison between the police department and the community. Not sure what else to say, but.
Thank you.
So I am also running for vice chair. I have been on this committee for, I think, just about a year now. I have liked very much being on this committee and working with the community, being for the Pullman School District, but also bringing everything in from WSU as well, being since I'm staff there. I really like leadership roles. I have a lot of leadership roles with the university, with the executive director for an association I'm with, and active in the Pullman community as well. So very much like that. And I also want to bring some more, helping Corey, if she's committee chair again, she's on the run for herself, bring in, look at different topics that we can bring here that will help all of our constituencies, different things that we can advocate for the community and WSU together.
Thank you. And are there any questions for any of us? They're talking about the beer festivals. No big deal. Any questions?
No, we had some. We're like, oh, Darby should have let us know we had to talk. I have to speak forever.
But you have president, first vice president, second vice president. You got three people. Give them all a spot.
Well, that's how we came up with the co-chair thing, and we're like, oh, co-chair's kind of, or co-vice chair, that's kind of weird.
So just a point of clarification in regards to the actual voting. Currently, alternates do have voting rights.
Under any kind of officer position, all positions have voting rights.
Okay, thank you.
So go ahead and vote. So any questions at all? All right,
We
we're
need
gonna vote.
a few pencils.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I have a few. You need a pen? Have a pen?
No, I do a write-in candidate.
Share with your neighbors.
I'll share with Joe.
Okay.
Pass it up.
You guys, thank you.
No, who should I vote for beer?
Thank you. However you want. I just don't know.
You're eager to leave. You're eager to leave from here.
Have more.
Got the first two.
We have different numbers this time, so maybe they won't come out even. Are there an even number of people?
Chief Jenkins, you have your quarter ready?
13, 14.
My report?
You have your quarter ready.
Oh, my quarter?
Yeah.
Adam
I'll
left.
have to actually borrow that because
Adam left me his votes. Can he be counted even though he's not here while we're doing the vote?
I think
He
so,
was
because
in
he was here and
attendance? Okay.
voted.
Just making sure.
Would you guys mind if we did the police department update during, well, Darby, just fix it those really quick?
Or do we postpone it?
Or should we, yeah.
We've done that before.
I don't know if I can do it in a
2
minute.
minutes.
Postpone.
Just postpone it then.
Oh, yeah.
He's done it.
Chief Jenkins is like, darn.
It'll sound like the end of one of those commercials where they give the disclaimer at the very end.
Well, we have been receiving the weekly
The weekly
updates,
updates.
so that has been very nice.
Yes, thank you.
Glad we put more work on those.
Well, those are actually mine.
Yeah, he does that.
One couch burn. I saw that.
Yeah, we did have one couch burning.
One couch.
Yeah. Yeah, the big.
I know, I was surprised it was only just one.
Maybe we should offer the second interviews to the new vice chair, see if they want to do this.
What second?
October 25th and 26th is interviews. I'm doing ones on Thursday and Friday of this week. We're sitting in on the interview too.
For police.
Yeah, we had code and then an officer position. Although I like doing it, it's fun. Usually, it's great. And it helps you practice for interviewing yourself, really, when you interview others. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, I've done that before, I shouldn't do that.
I know, but when you're on the spot, it makes it really hard.
Oh, yeah, and we're an intimidating bunch.
And we're just like,
Yeah.
Business,
Here's ours. And Corey wins chair.
It wasn't Darby.
I don't know who's who.
Oh, so Stephanie, Eric.
Well, so first the surprise, Corey.
And whoever wrote me in, I appreciate that.
I'll confess, Darby. I couldn't vote for myself.
So the ballots on committee vice chair reveal Stephanie, the winner of that race.
Congratulations, Stephanie, and thank
Thank
you,
you.
Eric, for putting your name in that too. You would have been great as well. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Eric, thanks for stepping up and filling in
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
during this time that we've been short.
All right, well, we don't even have to have a motion to adjourn because we reached time. We are a minute over. So I really appreciate all of you being here today. It's been great fun.